The council's gambit, the emergency session bells rang across Nexus 7, their haunting melody echoing through the massive space station that served as the heart of the intergalactic assembly. Representatives from over 300 worlds hurried through the gleaming corridors, their various forms casting strange shadows under the artificial starlight that bathed the station in eternal twilight. Admiral Keth Zorin walked slowly through the chaos, his weathered scales catching the light as younger delegates rushed past him. At nearly 2 centuries old, the reptilian veteran had seen enough emergency sessions to know when the galaxy was about to make a terrible mistake. His 3 hearts beat in an irregular rhythm as he approached the great chamber, each pulse carrying the weight of memories he wished he could forget. The assembly hall was a marvel of engineering, a sphere of transparent aluminum suspended in the void of space. Stars wheeled slowly around them as the station rotated, giving the impression that the delegates were floating in the cosmic dark itself. The irony was not lost on Zorin that decisions made in this beautiful prison often brought darkness to worlds beyond counting. Chancellor Vex Mordain stood at the central podium, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with barely contained ambition. The Calarian politician had risen quickly through the ranks, his silver tongue and ruthless pragmatism making him both feared and respected. Today, his usual composure was cracked, revealing the desperation beneath. "Fellow representatives," Mordain began, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustic systems, "we face an unprecedented crisis. The void swarm continues to consume entire star systems, and yet humanity continues to hide behind their neutrality pact. While our children die in the outer rim, Earth sits safely in their little corner of the galaxy, contributing nothing to our common defense." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The void swarm was indeed a threat unlike any they had faced before. The mysterious entities appeared without warning, consumed everything in their path, and left behind only empty space where once thriving worlds had existed. Every military force in the galaxy had been mobilized to stop them, save one, Earth's. "Military remains untested in this conflict," continued Mordain, his skin now blazing with orange frustration. "Their fleets are advanced, their population numerous, and their industrial capacity vast. Yet they claim neutrality while the rest of us bleed. This is not just selfish, it is treasonous to the very concept of galactic unity." A delegate from the Crystalline Collective stood, her voice chiming like wind through metal. "Chancellor, the neutrality agreements were signed by all parties. We cannot simply ignore centuries of law because it suits our current needs." Law, Mordain's laugh, was bitter. "Tell that to the ghosts of Kepler 4-4-B. Tell that to the families of those lost at the Battle of Proxima Gate. How many more worlds must die while Earth sits in judgment of our methods?" Admiral Zorin had heard enough, his platform activated, lifting him slowly toward the speaking position. The chamber fell silent as delegates recognized the legendary figure. Zorin had fought in more campaigns than most species had recorded in their histories. His word carried the weight of experience that no amount of political rhetoric could match. "I request permission to address the assembly," Zorin said, his voice carrying the gravel of age and the authority of command. Mordain's expression soured, but protocol demanded he yield. "The Admiral may speak." Zorin moved to the center of the chamber, his massive form dwarfing the podium. When he spoke, his words were measured, each one carefully chosen. "Honored delegates, I stand before you, not as a representative of any single world, but as someone who has witnessed the true cost of forcing humanity's hand. 50 years ago, during what history calls the Silent War, I learned a lesson that has haunted me ever since. The chamber was absolutely still. The silent war was classified at the highest levels, known only to those who had lived through it. Most delegates had heard rumors, whispers of a conflict that had lasted mere weeks but had reshaken the balance of power in the galaxy. I was younger then, Zorin continued, commanding the Third Fleet in the Outer Spiral. We had been tasked with bringing a rebellious human colony back into the fold. The colonists had declared independence and were refusing to pay their Federation taxes. It seemed like a simple police action. He paused, his eyes growing distant. The humans warned us. 3 times, they sent messages asking us to withdraw. They spoke of peace, of finding diplomatic solutions. We interpreted their words as weakness. We were wrong. A delegate from the Avian Confederation leaned forward. "Admiral, what does this have to do with the current crisis?" Zorin's gaze fixed on the questioner. "Everything. You see, we did not encounter the human military as we expected. Instead, we found something far more terrifying. We found humans who had been forced to abandon their principles." The chamber's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Zorin activated a holographic display showing star charts from 50 years past. Several systems blinked red, marking locations of the conflict. The rebellion lasted 18 days. In that time, we lost 7 fleets, 43 installations, and over 2 million personnel. The humans didn't conquer us. They simply made us cease to exist in their operational area. No negotiations, no prisoners, no mercy. They had asked for peace, and when we refused, they gave us the alternative. Chancellor Mordain stepped forward, his skin now pulsing with urgent yellow. "Admiral, you speak of ancient history. The current situation is different. We're not asking them to submit. We're asking them to join us in defending the galaxy, are we?" Zorin's voice carried an edge of steel. "Or are we asking them to abandon everything they believe in because it's convenient for us? Humanity doesn't avoid war because they're weak. They avoid it because they know what they become when they fight." The Admiral's words hung in the air like a physical presence. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of the human ambassador who sat quietly in the Earth's delegation section. Alina Vasquez had remained silent throughout the debate, her dark eyes observing everything with the patience of someone who had seen this drama play out before. "The question before us," Zorin continued, "is not whether we can force Earth to join our war. The question is whether we can survive the consequences of that choice. I have seen what happens when humans stop choosing peace. I pray to my ancestors that none of you will ever have to witness it yourselves." The chamber erupted in discussion. Voices rose in dozens of languages, translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. Some delegates supported Zorin's position, others questioned whether the threat of the Void Swarm outweighed the risks he described. Chancellor Mordain raised his arms for silence. "The Admiral's concerns are noted, but we cannot allow fear of hypothetical consequences to paralyze us when facing a real and immediate threat. The Void Swarm grows stronger every day. We need every ship, every weapon, every soldier we can muster." "And if the humans refuse?" asked a delegate from the gaseous collective, his voice emanating from a containment suit. "Then we will have to consider them complicit with the enemy," Mordain replied coldly. "Neutrality is a luxury we can no longer afford." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Fear of the Void Swarm outweighed fear of human reprisal. When the vote was called, it passed by a narrow margin. Earth would be given 7 days to join the war effort or face economic and military sanctions. Admiral Zorin voted against the measure, one of only 37 delegates to do so. As the chamber began to empty, he approached the human delegation, Ambassador. Vasquez stood quietly, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," Zorin said simply. "I tried to warn them." Vasquez nodded slowly. "I know, Admiral, and I want you to know that we appreciate your friendship. When this is over, I hope you'll remember that we gave them the same choice we gave you 50 years ago." "What choice was that?" Zorin asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "To walk away," Vasquez replied. "To choose peace over pride, wisdom over ambition. Your people made a different choice then, and now the galaxy makes a different choice today. But the offer was always there." She gathered her materials and prepared to leave. "I'll be departing for Earth immediately to deliver the assemblies. Decision, I suspect this will be the last time we speak as neutral parties." Zorin watched her go, a cold dread settling in his stomach. He had fought in 100 battles, commanded fleets that could shatter planets, and negotiated peace treaties. That had lasted centuries, but he had never felt as helpless as he did in that moment, watching a small human woman walk away carrying the seeds of galactic catastrophe. As the chamber emptied, Zorin remained behind, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the void. Swarm continued its relentless advance, consuming everything in its path. And somewhere else, on a small blue world that had chosen to stay out of the fighting, decisions were being made that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The Admiral closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to his ancestors, asking for forgiveness for what was about to come. He had seen what happened when humans stopped choosing peace. The galaxy was about to learn that some sleeping giants should never be awakened, no matter how desperate the situation becomes. Asterisk. When giants wake, the 7 days passed like a held breath across the galaxy. Communication networks buzzed with speculation, stock markets fluctuated wildly, and military commanders quietly began moving their forces away from space. Those who remembered the silent war knew what was coming. Those who didn't were about to learn. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the tactical display with the calm detachment of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire career. The ship hung in the void between stars, one of thousands of human vessels that had emerged from hiding places the galaxy never knew existed. Hidden bases in asteroid fields, camouflaged stations in nebulae, entire fleets that had been waiting in dimensional pockets for half a century. "Captain," her communications officer called, "we're receiving the final transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through," Chen replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The image of Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb appeared on the main screen, his weathered face carrying the weight of command and the sorrow of necessity. "All ships, all commands, all personnel. The Galactic Assembly has chosen to end our neutrality by force. As of 0800 hours, Earth, Standard Time, Protocol 7 is now in effect. You know your orders. You know your targets. Execute with precision. And remember why we chose peace for so long." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, of the peaceful world they had built, of the choice that had been taken from them. When she opened her eyes, they held the cold fire of someone who had tried to avoid this moment but would not flinch from it. "All stations, report readiness," she commanded. "Weapon systems armed and ready, Captain. Navigation has target coordinates locked in. Engineering reports full power to all systems." Communications network is active across all fleets. Chen nodded. Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1. Across the galaxy, human ships moved with a precision that spoke of decades of preparation. They didn't charge into battle like the warriors of other species. They didn't announce their presence with grand gestures or threatening broadcasts. They simply appeared where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, and began to work. The first target was the Calarian home system, Chancellor Mordaine's seat of power. The defense fleet was massive, nearly 1,000 ships arranged in careful formations around the planet. The system's orbital defenses were considered impregnable, protected by energy shields that could withstand planetary bombardment. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace numbered exactly 7 ships. Admiral Zorin watched the tactical display. From his command ship in the nearby Altus system, his 3 hearts racing as he witnessed the impossible. The human vessels were unlike anything in the galactic databases, their hulls seeming to bend light around them, their energy signatures almost undetectable. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Calarian fleet is moving to intercept. They're demanding the human ships identify themselves and state their intentions." Zorin said nothing, remembering Ambassador Vasquez's words about choices and consequences. The humans had made their choice 50 years ago to pursue peace. Now they were making a different choice. The lead human ship, designated only as Artemis, responded to the Calarian hails with a single, brief message. "You were warned." What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. The human ships didn't engage the Calarian fleet in combat. Instead, they did something far more terrifying. They began to edit the battlefield. The first indication something was wrong came when the Calarian flagship simply stopped responding to commands. Not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. Then the second ship went dark, then the third. Within minutes, the entire defense fleet had gone quiet. Their crews unharmed but unconscious, their systems locked down by technology that seemed to operate on principles the galaxy had never encountered. The orbital defenses were next. The massive shield generators that protected the planet didn't explode or collapse. They simply turned off, their control systems rewritten by invisible hands. The defense platforms that had guarded the system for centuries began transmitting human identification codes. Their weapons now pointed outward to prevent any rescue attempts. Chancellor Mordaine's voice crackled across the emergency frequencies, his bioluminescent skin blazing with terror and rage. "What have you done? What are you doing to us?" Captain Chen's image appeared on every screen in the system, her expression calm and professional. "We are doing what you forced us to do, Chancellor. You wanted Earth to join your war. Congratulations, you have our full attention." "This is impossible," Mordaine sputtered. "Your technology, your ships, where did they come from?" "From necessity," Chen replied. 50 years ago, you taught us that the galaxy would not allow us to remain peaceful, so we prepared. We spent half a century developing the means to end conflicts quickly and decisively. We hoped we would never need to use them." The camera pulled back, showing Chen standing in what appeared to be a command center that defied understanding. Holographic displays showed star systems across the galaxy, each one marking a location where human forces were simultaneously carrying out identical operations. The Avian Confederation's military headquarters, the Crystalline Collective's defense, networks, the gaseous collectives, trade hubs, all were being systematically neutralized by forces that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. "You see," Chen continued, "we learned something during the Silent War that the rest of the galaxy missed. The problem isn't that we're too weak to fight. The problem is that we're too effective when we do. We didn't develop weapons to destroy our enemies. We developed tools to remove the concept of enmity itself. Admiral Zorin watched in fascination and horror as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Everywhere human forces appeared, the same pattern emerged. Military assets were neutralized without casualties. Communication networks were taken over, and local populations found themselves under the protection of forces they couldn't see or understand. But the most shocking revelation came when the human fleets reached the front lines of the war against the Void Swarm. The mysterious entities that had been consuming star systems for months suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that operated by completely different rules. The Void Swarm. Entities were creatures of pure entropy, existing to consume and destroy. They moved through space like living storms, their forms defying conventional physics. They had resisted every weapon the galaxy had thrown at them, their alien nature making them nearly impossible to combat. The humans didn't fight them, they simply asked them to leave. The first contact between human forces and the Void Swarm occurred in the Rigel system, where a massive swarm entity had been in the process of consuming the local star. The human ship that approached was tiny by comparison, barely visible against the creature's massive form. "We know what you are," came the broadcast from the human vessel. "We know why you're here. We know what you're running from. You can stop. Now we can help." The Void Swarm entity paused in its consumption, its form shifting and coalescing into something resembling a communication array. When it spoke, its voice was like the death of stars, ancient and terrible and infinitely weary. "You ... understand." "We understand," the human captain replied. "We've been where you are. We've felt what you feel. The hunger, the need to consume, the desperate attempt to fill the void inside. We know because we've been there too." What followed was not a battle, but a conversation. The humans revealed that they had encountered the Void Swarm's creators centuries ago, a species that had tried to transcend physical existence and had accidentally created the entities that now threaten the galaxy. The swarm wasn't malicious. It was lost, trying to find its way back to a home that no longer existed. The humans offered them something the galaxy had never thought to provide: a path back to peace. Within hours, the Void Swarm entities began to withdraw from the systems. They had been consuming. They didn't disappear, but they stopped their destructive advance, clustering around human vessels like lost children, finally finding their way home. The galaxy watched in stunned silence, as the greatest threat they had ever faced was resolved, not through violence, but through understanding. The humans had accomplished in hours what the combined military might of 300 worlds had failed to achieve in months. Chancellor Mordaine's final transmission came from his personal quarters, his skin now dim with defeat and exhaustion. "I don't understand. You could have ended this war at any time. You could have stopped the Void Swarm from the beginning. Why didn't you?" Captain Chen's image appeared one last time, her expression sad but resolute. "Because you never asked us. 2. You demanded we join your war, fight your battles, use your methods. But you never asked us to solve your problems. There's a difference, Chancellor. One requires force, the other requires wisdom." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "We offered you peace 50 years ago. We offered you understanding. We offered you a different way. You chose to see our restraint as weakness, our patience as cowardice. But restraint and patience are not the same as inability." The transmission ended. leaving the galaxy to contemplate the new reality. The humans had not conquered them, had not destroyed them, had not even truly defeated them. They had simply demonstrated that there were alternatives to the endless cycle of violence and retaliation that had defined galactic politics for millennia. Admiral Zoran sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that now showed human ships dispersed throughout the galaxy, not as occupying forces, but as guardians and guides. The old warrior felt something he had not experienced in decades: hope. His communication officer approached hesitantly. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the human fleet. It's addressed to you personally." Zorin nodded, and Ambassador Vasquez's image appeared on his screen. She looked tired but peaceful, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Admiral," she said, "on behalf of humanity, I want to thank you for your friendship. And your warnings. We heard you, even when others didn't. And we want you to know that our offer of peace still stands. It has always stood. We hope that now the galaxy is ready to accept it." Zoran felt his 3 hearts beating in synchronization for the first time in decades. "Ambassador, I believe we are. What happens now?" "Now we heal," Vasquez replied. "We help the Void Swarm find their way home. We help the galaxy find a new path forward. We prove that strength doesn't have to mean dominance, that power doesn't have to mean conquest. We show everyone what we learned 50 years ago, that the greatest victory is the one that creates no losers." As the transmission ended, Zoran looked out at the stars and saw them not as distant lights in the darkness, but as beacons of hope in a galaxy that had finally learned the difference between force and strength, between war and justice, between conquest and peace. The sleeping giants had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time in centuries, that change felt like a promise rather than a threat. Asterisk.